throughout that area, aiming specifically at Jewish people and Jewish settlements. Historians estimate that his gangs murdered close to 200,000 Jews. In Jewish history, this is known as the Zajac, the tragedy of the year 1648, 1649. If that was not enough, right thereafter broke out a war between Sweden and Poland. And the Polish general, another anti-Semite by the name of Czarnecki, also went on a rampage specifically against Jewish people and Jewish settlements. The sufferings were indescribable. The horrendous murder of so many Jews, the destruction of so many communities, can hardly be imagined. But it is little wonder that the people felt, surely this must be the advent of the Messianic age. Surely after such suffering and after such pain, the only thing that can remedy this is this must be a sign, as already described in ancient Jewish texts, that before the Mashiach, the Messiah will come, there will be great suffering in the world. And they felt this surely must be it. If all these troubles were not enough, after the 10-year period of these great upheavals of 1648 to 1658, another earth-shaking event happened. Times of trouble and travail are always times of great messianic speculation. It is as if people feel that before the bliss of the morning of the messianic era, there is a dark night immediately preceding it. And indeed, there arose a man by the name of Zajac, who in 1665 proclaimed himself the Messiah. Whether he did so out of self-delusion or he did so intentionally is irrelevant. The fact is that unlike many other false messiahs that appeared in Jewish history before him, there were very few who gained so great a following as he did. His movement spread from the Middle East and Turkey to both Eastern and Western Europe. Initially, many great rabbis believed him and followed him, even while other rabbis spoke out sharply against him, proclaiming him to be a false messiah. But the popular following grew ever more. And people went so far as to sell everything they had in great anticipation of their move to the Holy Land to re-establish the Jewish commonwealths as of old, as promised in all the Messianic prophecies. Even after Zajac was arrested by the Turkish authorities, and to save his skin, forsook and betrayed his faith and converted to Islam.
No one saw that. We're not on Junior, right? No.
התוועדות של חי באלול, תשל"ט.
Sounds like rubbing open. Don't you think?
אלו המאורות הגדולים של רבי ישראל בעל שם טוב, מייסד החסידות הכללית, ורבי שניאור זלמן מלאדי, האדמו"ר הזקן, מייסד חסידות
Guys, l'chaim, Baruch Hashem, we are gathered together in person, marking the great day of CHAY ELUL. CHAY ELUL is the day that we have a greater opportunity to get more chayas in the avodah of the month of Elul, which will get us better ready for Rosh Hashanah. So Hashem should bless us that we should indeed be matzliach in this Farbrengen to reach within l'chaim. I don't know, we'll take a little break, we'll sing a few nugunim. Oh I want to share a beautiful story that I'm sure most of you heard, but it's a CHAY ELUL story. It's a story with the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe was in the earlier years. The Alter Rebbe founded Chabad Hasidism, and many Fruma people then were extremely suspicious of the Holy Baal Shem Tov. They were very suspicious to the point that there was a tragic, real machlokes amongst the Jewish people. And if someone chose to become a member of the group of Hasidim, it was very common that that person was mamish excommunicated from their families. Almost lahavdol, God forbid that if a Yid goes out to another religion. It's a disconnect. The Alter Rebbe acquired a chassid by the name of Gavriel, Rav Gavriel, who was later known as Rav Gavriel Noisachem. This is the story how he got the name Rav Gavriel Noisachem. Noisachem means that he found Chaim. Chaim means grace. Really, there's no real good translation to the word Chaim, but there's a certain bracha that Hashem gives on certain people that you cannot put your finger on, that you say, that person is bachent. So this is the story. He chose to become a follower of the Alter Rebbe, and when his family found out about it, particularly his wife's family, for whom he worked, a family that really supported his own, he married into a relatively wealthy family. They gave him the ultimatum, which was common, that either you do tshuva from your terrible mistake, or if not, you're out of the business. And he opted to be connected to the Alter Rebbe no matter what, and he lost his livelihood. Now, beforehand, he was a generous Jew. The Alter Rebbe, we're reading now the Yigeres HaKodesh, which is almost all about giving tzedakah. The Alter Rebbe had a minhag that when there was a fundraiser, people would approach you on behalf of the Rebbe and basically tell you how much money you are to give. Now, of course, you can say no, but it's very difficult to say no to a Rebbe. So there was a certain fundraising for tzedakah. And Gavriel Noisachem was asked by the Alter Rebbe for a substantial amount of money. And in the past, he was shaykh. It was a big ask. But it was a big ask in the realm of possible when you're making a living. When a person, God forbid, becomes unemployed, then it was completely beyond. He was, at the time, for whatever reason, he hesitated to tell the Rebbe that he actually needs a bracha to get a parnasa. He didn't say anything. And he was especially careful not to say anything because he knew that the reason why he lost his living was because he sided with the Alter Rebbe. He didn't want to make the Alter Rebbe somehow feel bad about that. So he was silent. But the money, he had no way of giving. And he had tremendous pain that for the first time, after however many years he was already connected to the Alter Rebbe, he would be completely unable to fulfill his pledge. His wife felt his pain. She went ahead and she auctioned off all of her jewelry to be able to put together that amount of money that the Alter Rebbe asked of her husband. On top of that, being that this tzedakah was very dear for her, it was dear because she was giving it her all, so she decided that the coins that she was going to send with her husband, when she sold her jewelry, she polished every single coin. And when she polished the coins, she had a kavanah that being that they were married for many years without children, that she was hoping that in the merit of tzedakah, that God would bless them, and that would be already miraculously with having a child. Rav Gavriel comes to the Alter Rebbe, and he came with a bag with these coins. The Alter Rebbe opened up the bags. Not only were those coins shining physically, but the Alter Rebbe was the Alter Rebbe. He saw much more than what we saw, obviously. There was a special shine coming from those coins. And he asked Rav Gavriel, why are these coins shining? So he told Alter Rebbe the whole thing. Told him that he lost his parnasa, he was giving an ultimatum, and he needed to come through, and his wife sold the jewelry, and she polished the jewelry. So the Alter Rebbe leaned his head on his holy hand, and he tells Rav Gavriel that when we built the Mishkan, everyone participated with tzedakah. Everyone was in. But there was one gift that had a greater shine, even physically, more than all the other gifts. What was that gift? That the basin that Kohanim needed to use to wash their hands and their feet every day before they began the avodah, the shiur, was made out of the mirrors that was basically part of the jewelry of the woman. It was a donation that had to do with the beauty of a woman that they gave away for the temple. And the Alter Rebbe associated that gift of the kiyur to the gift of his wife, because a woman or jewelry, that's her beauty. And the Alter Rebbe says that there was no utensil in the Beis HaMikdash that had a greater shine than the kiyur. And then he told Rabbi Gabriel, he gave him the biggest brachas. He told him that he should move away from where they lived. They lived in proximity to all those people who were very much against him being a chassid. The Alter Rebbe told him that he should go into the jewelry business, and Hashem will bless you. He tells Rabbi Gabriel that you'll be noisachein. When people will look at you, you'll always find grace in their eyes. And he benched him that he's going to become wealthy, and that he's going to have a child, and he's going to have a very long life. So I give him all the brachas. And Rabbi Gabriel was from then on known as Rabbi Gabriel, who found favor in the eyes of everyone.
You had the table, you had a great time with your friend.
Rabbi Gabriel Noisachein had a child with his wife after many years of marriage, and Rabbi Gabriel Noisachein lived until 110, and his wife outlived him for a few months. So I think this is a great CHAY story, because I'm just focusing on the point that the money was there. The money was there. She could have given the money without polishing it. The concept of sometimes you're not adding anything new, but you're taking what you have and you're polishing it. For sure, a lot of Hasidus is new. Of course, there's a whole Torah that we never had. But the beauty about Hasidus is that aside of the new, let's go back to not to the old, that when we choose to become better Hasidim, it's a choice that demands of us. But you know what Hasidus does? Hasidus takes everything that we are already doing, and it allows us to polish it. And it's a whole different thing. When you have an old penny, or when you have a glanzedick, piece of copper that's like a mirror. It's a different penny. It's something else completely. And that's mamash Hasidim. When you look at a Hasidic Yid, what is he doing? He's doing what every other Yid does. It's in the morning, and he davens, and he learns, and he works, v'chulei. But there's something different. There's a nesiyas chaim. What's the chaim? There's something that is a gift that the Baal Shem Tov gave us. It's a gift. It's a mamash matana. We just have to be able to receive it well. And it gives us a koyach to make our Yiddishkeit shining. So chaver l'chaim that we should appreciate the beauty, the gift that we have, and l'chaim that we should do our part. And obviously everyone knows where they're at. It's a custom-made program. There isn't what you have to do, what I have to do. But there's no doubt that we all can become more Hasidish in the context of we can serve God with greater joy. We should become more emisdik. And whatever it is that we're doing, we can make it shine a little bit nicer for the eyes of God. L'chaim, l'chaim. There's a beautiful nigun that we have that is a nigun of both the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid. As we just watched before, these are one of the classical nigunim that we specifically sing on a day like today on CHAY. There's a story that I heard in yeshiva many times. Many people heard the Maisa, and I heard it today. I was hearing a Farbrengen, and I heard another version. So whichever one is correct is the correct one, but I want to share what was for me a new story. Now, when I was younger, I heard that there was a letter that the Baal Shem Tov wrote to his brother-in-law, the great Rab Gershon Kitove, in which the Baal Shem Tov is telling him who the Baal Shem Tov was in a prior life. I heard this story many times. I know that I heard it from my father, and I heard it in yeshiva, and I'm sure you guys heard it also. I always heard a consistent girsa, and here another version. So the version is that the Baal Shem Tov, in his prior life, was a simple, the word simple is not so simple, but he was a simple Jew that lived in Tzfas around in the time of the Holy Arizah. And he was not the great scholar for whatever reason. He was a simple, God-fearing, honest Yid that had the Iker. The Iker is he had Emunah, and he had Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem, and he did the mitzvahs to the best of his ability, which for sure was amazing. But relative to the holy Baal Shem Tov in the next life, he was a simple Jew. At a certain time in his life, Elyahu HaNavi himself appears by the Baal Shem Tov, appears by this Jew, and he tells this Yid that there is something that you did on the day of your Bar Mitzvah that is causing such a light in Gan Eden. You did something so great that you are lightening up the heavens, and no one is able to know what you did. And we are very curious. We can't contain ourselves. So I was sent to let you know that if you will agree to share with me what is it that you did on your Bar Mitzvah day, then in return, I'm going to open up your mind and I'm going to share with you the godliness in the Torah. And Atkan was a story that I'm sure you guys heard it, and that Jew, with again the prior life, that was the Baal Shem Tov in his prior life, told Elyahu HaNavi that the virtue, the importance of being modest. Being modest means not showing off. Not showing off is a mitzvah for all of us, for men and for women, and it includes a lot. Also, if a person has something special, something that's really special, that is something that you really should not show off. Keep it private. So he was notified that there was something special that he did. So special that it's lightening up the heavens. So that's the moment to be modest. He says, what I did for God, and I'm not going to share it with anyone. I'm not doing it for you. I did it for God. That's called modesty. Now, what I heard today is that Elyahu Navi told him that he's going to open up his mind nevertheless. He's going to, whatever he was going to gift to him, now that he's modest, for sure he earned it. And Elyahu Navi changed that Jew. He became a great tzaddik. He achieved a lot of ruchnius. He became the greatest Torah scholar, but he continued to live his life exactly the way he lived it until then. In other words, no one knew that this Jew was a different Jew. And all of a sudden, he had so much that he could have shared, and he did not in the sake of modesty. So after he passes away, when he was brought in front of the heavens, so there was the judgment, and there was one critique on him. And the critique is that you were gifted with so much after Elyahu Navi opened up your mind, and you remained modest. Well, the downside is that no one had any benefit from everything that you had. You did not share that which you had. I never heard this whole version. That was a kategan against him. And therefore, the solution for that is that he's going to have to come back down. Again, he's going to be gifted with a whole new title, but he has to rectify the fact that he did not share with his fellow. In other words, there was a certain lack. Lefi madrei gasoi of Avos Yisrael. There was a whole new title that's based in Avos Yisrael. So he's going to be the one through whom this Torah that makes Avos Yisrael the center will come through. I heard a whole different version, but this is what I heard, and I want to share the story, and it's Gavaldik. Because what is the story telling us? That the uniqueness of the Torah of Hasidim, which the Torah of Hasidus is the Torah of the Holy Baal Shem Tov. The Alter Rebbe did not make up a new Torah. The Alter Rebbe, it gave us new tools how to internalize Hasidus, which was given through the Baal Shem Tov. Torah HaChasidus is the Torah of the Holy Baal Shem Tov. And what makes Hasidus new? That it's a Torah that has Avos Yisrael as its core. And when we even get together, Chayel, and thank God that we're getting together, even the Gashmis, and we're celebrating Chayel, and we're celebrating the Baal Shem Tov, and we're celebrating the Alter Rebbe, which means we're celebrating Hasidus. So what does that practically mean? Practically, it means is that our relationship with the Torah has to be in a way that the core of everything that we're learning and the core of everything that we're doing is Avos Yisrael. And I know that I share this a lot because I'm talking to me, but I have no doubt that Avos Yisrael has to begin at home. Avos Yisrael doesn't mean that you begin out there. It's so easy to be nice to a stranger. It's so easy. It's almost selfish. It's almost even your Yetzer Hara wants you to be nice to someone out there. But to be nice to people that you live with every day, to people that sometimes might, in your perception, they might be irritating you as you are irritating them, which means your wife, which means your husband, which means your children. Now, I can tell you something. I'm lucky that I remember whenever my father walked into the house, he always had a hello that was upbeat. Always upbeat. Always upbeat. Whether he felt that or not, I'm sure some days yeah, some days not. So was it so emisdik? Okay, Malin. But the Hasidim were always happy people. They made an effort, not because it was easy, because it's so good to be around a happy person. And it's so down, it's so difficult to be around an irritated person. So if we are going to make Hasidism real, emisdik, if we're going to make Avos Yisrael emisdik, and of course, it means reaching out to every Yid and teaching Torah. It means being nice in the home. I think it begins with that. It begins and ends with that. That's the Evan Aboichin, and that's something that all of us have to get better at. As good as one thinks they are, good is good, better is better. That if we are putting in an effort to daven with the minyan, which is a great thing, and to do the mitzvahs behidden, then no doubt that by us as Hasidim, the greatest hidur is the hidur mitzvah of being a happy person in the home. Ubefrat, there was a lot of things that happened this year. One of the things that shifted is that people became more home-centric. Baruch Hashem, things are opening up more. But people really spent a lot of time in their homes, a lot more in the whole world, and that is a great thing. That put the home back in the center. The home is the center, and therefore everything that we learn about has to be home directed. And I know it's not so easy, or some people have it easier. Truth is, everyone has it difficult in their place. Everyone has their challenge in that area, and l'chaim that we're good, but l'chaim that we should begin becoming Hasidic Yidden, not meaning a Hasidic Yid that you come home and you brech on the carpet. That was my understanding. Hasidic Yid, no, Hasidic Yid is that when your wife sees you, she's happy that you're home because you're a happy guy, you're upbeat, and the kids see you. Before Yira has to come Ahava. Has to be a certain amount of kindness and of generosity and of tolerance. This is mamish the Yesod HaYesod of Chassidus. And it's so emes that Hasidic Yidden were always that way. We're always that way. And Hashem should bless us that we should be Hasidic Yidden. I'm speaking about doing mitzvahs behidden. I'm not minimizing any of that. But if you want to begin in Avos Yisrael, if you get that right, then everything else will be a lot easier. L'chaim, l'chaim. I want to say that for certain people, being generous in the home means not to be at home so often. I'm not saying a joke. There's certain you have to. Everyone, like there's no one box is for everyone. Certain people, if they're home too much, they make their spouses sugar, or they make the husbands crazy, or just their nature is such that they get angry at their kids. Then it's a bracha to get them out of the house. It's a Achmenish joke. That's also Avos Yisrael. Yeah, I know. Just being realistic, Avos Yisrael means that the person should live a lifestyle that first and foremost our family members should find it more pleasant rather than less pleasant to be hanging around people like ourselves. Chay ELUL. At least for 10 years I had the schus to be by the Rebbe for Tishrei. I was by the Rebbe before I went to yeshiva, but it's a whole different Tishrei experience. And we normally would come for Chay ELUL. This was the moment that the Bachim would come to the Rebbe. So many fond experiences, but we watched before a clip of the Rebbe. Most yeshiva Bachim were not there. If you were not born in Crown Heights, then you really were not present by many Farbrengens. Some of them were in the 80s, in the middle 80s, they started to go on the cable, and they showed them in yeshiva, but that was already, I don't remember, 86 or 84. Before that, you heard all the Farbrengens, but you can't compare even watching a video, even if it's live, and being by the Rebbe. Chay ELUL, Begashmias began Tishrei by the Rebbe. It began. And you needed to be strong. What's the first thing that I learned? I got there the first time I was 14 years old. I was very short. I was much shorter than an average 14-year-old. And you go into a room and there are thousands of people, and every day more people are coming. So when you survive the Chay ELUL Farbrengen, you did it. But then, Chavtes, the birthday of the Tzemach Tzedek, and of Rosh Hashanah, to survive that is a whole new Madrega. And Rosh Hashanah, Oy Gewalt, to survive physically. My first Yom Kippur, I was 14 years old. So I was trying to go to be near Napoleon's March, to be near the front of 770, and the break between Musaf and Mincha, that's when everyone started to pack in. At some point, I couldn't. I had a bed in the dormitory. I was so exhausted from standing there that I went to sleep. I think I woke up 2 or 3 in the morning. That was my first Napoleon's March. I slept for many hours. I was out. I was a midget. And then, as the years went on, so at Chay ELUL, this was the beginning. I'm just reliving that moment that Chay ELUL and all the guys are coming, and there was a Farbrengen. And after the Rebbe's Farbrengen, Ersh began a Farbrengen. And it was the most beautiful thing. And then everyone woke up in the morning. I had a very good group of Chavedim. Then, this is in Tafshin Mem Beis. And we went to the mikveh, and then Slichas began. Oy Gewalt. And Slichas, the first year, I never saw people making a l'chaim by Slichas. I never, it was such a shock. And it was, you know something? I'm telling you, I was a child. It had such a good impression because there was Kedusha there. It was, thank God I didn't witness anything. I'm sure there a lot of stuff that wasn't good, but there was joy, and there was happiness, and there was Taka Avos Yisrael, and people then shared their place. A newcomer, you have no place. So you always hear about the fights. By me, I remember people gave another place and another place. Huh? It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And guests came, and the whole Crown Heights. Now every family in Crown Heights had a Chnas Asar. You look back, what kind of beautiful communities. Can you imagine how many families lived there then? Maybe 1,000 families. I don't know how many families lived in 1980 and 1982. And how many people used to come on Aguzma? Probably 5,000 or 6,000 people, without exaggeration. It means that every person had in their home. It's like a ruchnistic thing, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to be a host, to go host people that don't speak your language, have a different culture. And Farbrengens, and people came late at night from a Farbrengen. It was mamish. It was moments in time. We have the same achrayas, the same responsibility. Now the Tishrei begins now. Hayel. I mean, the avoid of Tishrei, avoid of Elul. So Chavra L'chaim, we should have chayes, and we should be joyful. We should have Avos Yisrael. Amen. Message of the story is, the concept is that when you go into a place or to a time where there's a lot of amazing things happening, even if you cannot keep up with all of it, it's good to be joyful by the fact that we're there. I think the month of Tishrei is a busy month, and until we become real adults, I don't think we have the capacity, we have the koyach, the ruchnizik koyach of really being part of all of it. It's like going to 770 when you're 14 years old. There are too many adults there. You're going to be crushed. Doesn't matter. It's still a good experience because you chop this and you chop that. I think that's a healthy approach to the whole tissue that's in front of us. It's overwhelming, and it should be overwhelming because we're kindlach. To understand what Rosh Hashanah is and what Yom Kippur is and what Sukkot is the whole avoid of big tzaddikim. Eloma, we're happy that we're here. We have to get into the mode that we're happy that we're here, and not to feel anguished and not to feel can't do it. This year, less meals. It's easier in the homes, mustama. The avodah this year should be a lot easier. The gashmias, l'choyv. Again, first of all, big yashikoyach for people that are hosting, but many people, because of COVID, are hosting less. It feels as less. The fact that the shul is in a garage, it feels like camp, which is good in a good way. So, in other words, there's good and not good. Let's speak about the good. The good is that people should enter with less pressure, with more joy. Not, God forbid, to minimize the seriousness. It's a serious month. But sometimes people are nervous about Elul and Tishrei. I'm not ready. You have to get over that. We have to learn how to embrace it. The simcha. that Rosh Hashanah is coming. How great is that? And Yom Kippur is coming, and Sukkot is coming, and we have the merit to be. We're in the neighborhood. We're kids. Okay, one day we'll grow up, and then we'll be able to be part of all of it. But let's chap on to the best that we could. We'll to that. Shabbos Slichas. Yeah. Different emotions. You can have joy, you can have dancing. Rabbi Weinberg, we just saw him in the video. Rabbi Weinberg, when he lost his first wife, I think it was in Tafshin and Vav, he always davened so heartzik, so heartfelt. And then when his wife passed away, just the emotions, you have a few thousand people. Because all of the people that cannot be yonted with the Rebbe because they lived at shuls or they were even 2 hours away, people drove in for slichas. They would take out all the benches of 770, even when I was about. It was in the early 80s. That was probably the most packed. More than Yontif, because Yontif, if you're not in the neighborhood, you can't drive. From a Yidden. But everyone came for slichas. And there was so much joy, a mamish holy joy. You couldn't dance. It was packed. And then Rabbi Weinberg would say slichas with tears. And the year that his wife passed away, boy, did he cry. The stones were crying with him. You cried with him. Yeah, you couldn't get away. And then there was dancing. And I remember the Yidden, slichas by the Rebbe took an hour, the first night. Relative, it's quite slow. But there were always Yidden that took them much longer. So you have to watch the image of a Jew that's takas take slichas with tears in his eyes. And he's in a group, in a shalom khan, of 1,000 people that are dancing. So here there's dancing, and here there's crying. In the same time, these are gewaldige things, gewaldige images. And we have to continue that for our kids. It means that when our kids look at us in the shul, there has to be the Jew that cries. Like Yoni is the simcha one. We need to have it. We need to have a crier. We need to have a freiliche. We have to tap in. We have to channel it. It's not us. It's bigger than us. But we have to step up without pressure. But we're entering the most beautiful month of the year. We're entering the most beautiful month of the year to the point that we should already be sad that it's almost over. That's the right attitude. We should feel, oy, chaval, it's almost done. To get into that zone, then I think we enjoy it. Not enjoy it in a selfish way. We connect to it better. So l'chaim Yidden, we have to open up to the Chodesh of Tishrei. We have to finish the month of Elul to do the Hachanas. Hachanas is to get close to God. That's the Hasidus, Melech Basari. To get closer to God, to feel closer to God, to make the first step. L'chaim. Can you share some Hadich? You are where you want to be. Baal Shem Tov said. So let's travel to Hadich while we're sitting in a garage.
Get there.
No, there's something special about how you get there. You were telling me once more.
So actually, I did today a really interesting thing. I was bringing back to Seymour, but he has a screen and a thing. Seymour, which is to access his house, right? It's an alleyway, right?
That's how you get to his house.
So I drove up and down that alley a few times.
The Baal Shem Tov's road before.
Yeah, because the road feels like that's what you're right.
Yes, because on Shabbos I always walk there because there's no cars. And there's so many beautiful plants.
Oh, that?
I always call that the Baal Shem Tov's road.
Oh, that's a nice way to see it. But the potholes, that alley.
But I wasn't driving. We walk on Shabbos.
Right. It feels like Ukraine.
It's the Baal Shem Tov's road.
You're driving for 4 hours. Oh. Look, it's very good. Today, it's there's a very beautiful setup now in Hadich. George Rohr gave a lot of money to build. George Rohr. And he built a really, really beautiful infrastructure there.
Baruch Hashem, that's good.
Yeah, really, it makes it, and it's a place that people go to. It's a known place. Even the Goyim go. The Goyim know to go to. I think there's a video in the Solar Chat about somebody from Brooklyn who goes to the oil. Yeah. George or something.
Richard.
So when I was there, you'd see a lot of sincere Ukrainians, they know that this is a place. Like when you go to Prague, also, by the way, today is the other side of the Maharal,
Right.
who is the Alter Rebbe is the seventh generation Enikol Ben Achar Ben of the Maharal. Also, it's a big thing for those who have been. If you go to Prague, you see to go to the whole city of Prague is preserved in the old city, and the regular locals and they know that this is a special holy place. So Hadich is a very magical town. Mezhbej also has a very unique charm. I posted right before Shabbos the chat just an aerial view of Mezhbej and inside the Baal Shem Tov Shul. There's a certain chen you spoke. It's a very beautiful town that exists in these two cities. These cities, they're towns. They're literally little villages. But something very, very rich. But yeah, the Alter Rebbe, when you go into it's so interesting the connection between the Alter Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov CHAY ELUL in terms of also who they are, and the Koren have really they express this certain feeling, an avir, a feeling, an environment. So when you go to the Baal Shem Tov, you really feel warmth, and you go to your Bubby's kitchen, and there's a little couch, and there's cookies, and there's soup, and you smell. You really get that feeling you're at Bubby and Zadie's house. Really, you do. And the Baal Shem Tov is just warmth, and he's our Zayda, and Zadie of Hasidus, and warm and welcoming, and it doesn't have there's nothing charif in there. It's very, very soft and warm and gentle, and almost it smells sweet. But when you walk into the Alter Rebbe's room, when you go into the cave of the Alter Rebbe's room, as it's described, it's pachad. It's an open Aron Kodesh by Ne'ilah. And I use the example very often of the noise-canceling headphones. If you ever put on those special headphones, the Bose ones, whatever, that when you switch on the switch, you can actually hear silence.
That's what I had when I saw the movie. This just like what you said.
You actually hear silence. And you really do feel, there are times I'm trembling to walk in. You literally just for people who had experiences like that, also by the oil, you don't just walk in. It's not, nobody's selling trinkets outside or juggling acts or barbecues. This is in Chabad, the Kfarim are considered, Kodesh HaKadosh. So going into the oil, into the room, happens, it's not like the Rebbe's oil, because the Rebbe's oil is open roof. This is Ukraine, so it gets very, very cold, and so it's a closed, sealed. So it's for Kohen, they can only go on the outside. But you really, really sense you're in front of an open Aron Kodesh Ne'ilah. That's what you really sense. So it just reminds me of a quick story. I don't know if you've told it recently or in the past or even tonight. You're describing the neshama of the Baal Shem Tov that came into the world. The neshama chadasha, this rare, unique neshama, new neshama that comes into the world, is one in thousands of years, which means since Adam HaRishon, there could be 2 or 3 of these neshamas that came into the world. And it takes 24 months for such a neshama to come into the world. Which is why Reb Baruch, the Alter Rebbe's father, when he got married 2 years earlier, 24 months, and they wanted children. They would go to the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov gave a bracha. You'll have a shton. But this went on, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, right? The Baal Shem Tov kept giving a bracha, and sure enough, 24 months later, the Alter Rebbe was born. So what happened on CHAY ELUL when the Alter Rebbe was born? The Baal Shem Tov woke up. It was his own birthday. The Baal Shem Tov woke up and put on big day Yontif, big day Shabbos. He put on special clothing, and he davened for the Yom himself, and he davened with a Yontif Nusach. He davened a regular weekday Shabbos on CHAY ELUL with a Yontif Nusach, and he was in an incredibly good mood. And then after he finished davening in Farbrengen, he said that this new neshama came into the world that was CHAY ELUL, was the Alter Rebbe. And he gave very specific instructions. And one of the particular instructions we spoke before about tznius and about how the Baal Shem Tov came in about tznius, that the Alter Rebbe did not want the Baal Shem Tov did not want that the Alter Rebbe should see him and meet him. And only on extreme insistence and a lot of persuasion, eventually did the Baal Shem Tov agree to do a upsharon on the Alter Rebbe. And even then, Reb Baruch, the Alter Rebbe's father, couldn't bring him. It had to be done through a sister and through a relative, wait in the carriage, come out very quickly, and that was it. And then the Alter Rebbe was razor sharp, said, "Who was that?" They tried making up different reasons. It's so and so. It's this one. It's that one. And he outcopped every answer they tried to give. There was a problem with the answer. Eventually, they said it's one of your Zaydins. So he let it go. So that was the only time the Alter Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov actually had direct contact like that. But one of these specific instructions that he gave, the Baal Shem Tov gave for the Alter Rebbe when he was born, what should happen immediately is the Baal Shem Tov gave a beged, he gave a blanket, a garment, to the Reb Baruch, the Alter Rebbe's father, and he said, when the baby is born, you immediately wrap the baby in this blanket. And that's how, to protect him or to keep him shielded. And as long as, I'm not sure the timing involved, but this was the immediate thing to be done. And that blanket had been transferred to the Mitzvah Rebbe. Samat said, went all the way down. Every one of our Rebbes was wrapped immediately when they were born in this blanket. And it's not known, this is according to Yossi Paltil's explanation, whether the blanket actually made to Nikolai, whether our Rebbe also was put into this blanket. But this blanket, and I don't know where the blanket is right now, but was every Rebbe, not even known it would be the Rebbe, like that would be the next Rebbe, but that blanket was used to wrap the Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe was wrapped in this blanket and shielded and protected, and he had another very interesting midah, that the Alter Rebbe at a very, very young age, of course, no one could teach him anymore at a certain age, and he traveled also so nobody really could discover him or knew. As soon as people caught on to how great he was and what he had, he would move on to the next town. So he would go into a town just for a short time. And he also made he had a certain standard for himself that he refused to accept anything for free. Alter Rebbe's father? So, yeah? Baruch would nothing for free. So Baruch went from place to place as a young boy?
Because he became an orphan from father and mother when he was very young. He almost starved to death.
Almost right. But the Alter Rebbe was given a huge dowry of the equivalent of today would be millions of dollars. That he refused. He said, "I'll marry, but not every penny is not going to be used for my. It's only going to be given away or lent for other to start businesses to save them." But just back to the Hadich, yeah, the road is long to get there, but very worth it.
I want to say something that Mati told me. I want to read you something that Mati told me many times, and it had a very important impact. And that is like this: is that when we go to the Rebbe, because of just the nature of the world that we live in, that we go on an airplane, and there's a lot of distractions, that one can be not connected dafke to Rebbe on the way here. That it's possible that when you come to the oil, unless you're very holy, if you did not invest enough time, you'll miss the moment. You won't chop it. But he told me that the beauty of going to Hadich or to Mezhebush is that when you go to that part of the world, there's no gashmis. Because when you land there, by the fact that you have to go into a bus that's going to take you for I don't know how many hours, not that it's comfortable, and there is no internet, and there's nothing other than to do this, than to either to learn Torah, and to Farbrengen, and to daven, and so that gives you, when you know that you're going to a cave, you're going to a tzaddik, and you have many hours with no distraction, it helps even people like us get into a much better zone, which is why the potential experience by the Alter Rebbe and by the Baal Shem Tov is already easier for you to get it than when you go to the oil. Right? I'm
It's
repeating
so,
it in my
it's so
words.
important what you're saying.
But what he told that to me, a few years ago, and I went into my mind right away, and I'm going to share it out loud, is that this is so true for Chayel. Why is it true for Chayel? Chayel, because Chayel is 12 days before Tishrei. Guys, next Friday night is Rosh Hashanah. Whether I like it or not, whether you like it or not, it's happening. It's not up to me, it's not up to you. The way God made us, so certain people are very ruchniistic. They're very ruchniistic. So boom, Rosh Hashanah, they can be in the mode of Kabbalah Malchus. Most people are not that way. We understand certain concepts. We can understand it. But from here until here, there's the throat. The mates that I got it. So the goal of the next 12 days, and everyone has to custom make this. The goal of the next 12 days is that make believe that in these 12 days, we're on a bus in the Ukraine with the potholes to go to see the Rebbe. Because then when you hit Rosh Hashanah, you're not, tonight is Rosh Hashanah. It's not that easy because you live here, and thank God for those who have parnasa, and most people's parnasas beautiful, but you're not on a bus in Ukraine, and we have to figure out how to go to work, and we can do that. How to be in the world, and at the same time be on the bus to go to the Mezhebush or to go to the Alp. We have to figure that out, because once we figure that out, when you make hachana, one of the reasons why you make a bracha before a mitzvah, mainly before you eat, you make a bracha because God gave me the food. I'm stealing from God if I don't make a bracha. Why do you have to make a bracha before you do a mitzvah? Especially if you don't even enjoy the mitzvah, you're not taking from God. You're giving God a mitzvah. Why do you have to make a bracha? It's for you. Because for you to chap the mitzvah, you're not going to at least take a moment before you do the mitzvah and chap what you're doing. You are about to do a mitzvah. The more preparation, the better the preparation, the better selfishly you'll be able to experience the moment. And that's mamish chayel was 12 days before El, psychologically. That now is the time for people to get into the bus to go to the Hadid. Actually, that's the best metaphor. You're on a bus. So if you're on the bus, you have to do some work. It's a mitzvah to do parnasa. I'm not saying people should work less. Chas v'shalom. I'm saying that if we can figure out how to be traveling, we're traveling to Rosh Hashanah, then when Rosh Hashanah comes, it's going to be a whole different Rosh Hashanah, better Rosh Hashanah, greater Rosh Hashanah. So l'chaim, guys, we are on a trip to go to the Rebbe. That's what we're getting into right now.
To completely support what you're saying, when you go to the oil, and it's a wonderful gift that we're able to easily access the oil. We really are. I mean, if we need to, within 6 or 7 hours, we can go and we're there. With that also comes that once you go there, you check in, but you can also check out pretty quickly. You go to a nice restaurant, and you're before you know it. When you go to Mezhebush, you go to Hadich, there's no restaurants to run to after. There's no there's no business meetings, and the experience that I had after going into the Alter Rebbe, and this literally has happened every single time. And first and foremost, for anyone who does have the opportunity to go, and whatever the schedule is and whoever arranged the trip, make sure you have at least 10 or 12 hours in Hadich. It is none of this go and...
No rushing. There's no rushing.
For several years, I went with groups, and we were like, okay, you have a couple of hours and whatever. No, you really, really need a lot of time. Enough time to say all of Tehillim in the oil. And there's many segulas for that. Understood, just sit down, park yourself down, minor lashon, you sing all the Alter Rebbe Nigunim, say all of Tehillim after you've written a pot, everything that we do, but really dedicate a lot of time. And when it's over and you leave, you literally you feel like you sing the Holiest March. You do. You feel like you're just like after Yom Kippur, you feel light, right? We feel light. We fasted, and it was this, but we feel very, very light. And that is the experience when you do with the right preparations, and there's nowhere to run to afterwards, except to Farbrengen. And there's also great setup for that. Finish, take your time, leave, and there's Farbrengens, and then you go into Simchas Yom Tov. Yep.
Yeah. We mentioned before that this Farbrengen is dedicated as a Suda Seidah for a woman in the community called Mariasha Bas Devoida. That she had a very ruchnistic experience. And I want to say like this, that all of us, if we would have the right hachana, that means if we would be in the right emotional space, the right mental space, it's not that more things, more godly revelations would happen to us. Not necessarily. We would be more aware of that which is already happening to us. And there are things that happen to every person here that if we would have been in a better emotional state, we would have been so moved. I mean, in other words, you can argue that there's already such a Gilui Elikus. The reason why many people feel like I don't feel it, I don't see it, I don't experience it, it's first we're not opened enough yet to it. You know, there's the famous word that when Hashem came to Moshe Rabbeinu, and when he revealed himself the first time, it wasn't God, it was a malach, it was a psabush that was burning, there was something that wasn't usual. And you know, and the Chumash writes that Moshe Rabbeinu said that wow, asura na ve'era, let me turn and look at this wondrous sight. How can it be that there's something that's happening You can't say it was a miracle. Maybe you wouldn't say, would you notice it to see a bush burning here in LA now with all the fires? But no, there was something a little bit not the norm. So it says that God saw, I forgot exactly the lashon of the pasuk, that Vayar Hashem ki saw the Midrash, when God saw that Moshe Rabbeinu turned to look, then God told Moshe. In other words, that why did God take it to the next level? There was something that was already visible to Moshe on his relative on that level before God came to him. Eloma, he could have ignored it. Okay, God did something special for me. No, God does something special too. It's about time God did something for me. And the gate fighted. That's one way of grasping that moment. And then there was Moshe Rabbeinu that he said, you know what? Something special is happening. Let me stop, let me turn, and let me look. Asura no ve'era. So Vayomer Hashem, so when God saw that Moshe Rabbeinu looked, that's the Moshe that God was waiting for. Now God came and began to speak to Moshe. You know, there's the story that it's from the Far East story. In the Far East, all of the shuls, aside of very few, one in Singapore, very few shuls. There are many shuls that were built there by a Kaduri family, very wealthy family that lived there. They originated from Iraq, and in Shanghai, there was a shul that was not built by the Kaduri family. The shul was built 30 or 40 years before the war, before the Second World War. The Qudra is the same, that there was a Yid that Rahman al-Islam, he made the choice of marrying out. Terrible choice. And God blessed him, and he was wealthy, and he gave a lot of money to a lot of causes. He gave it to nothing Jewish. He wasn't part of the Jewish community. And he had a dream. And in his dream, his father comes to him. His father tells him that you are doing so much good in the world, it's about time that you do some good for your own community. Oh. So he wakes up and he calls up the rabbi in Shanghai. This was, I think this was in the 20s, in the 1920s. And he asks the rabbi, what does the community need? So he told him, like a good rabbi, building project, the Eden project, you got to build a building. So he says, let me see the blueprints. And the blueprints was a nice, cute little shul. He says, no. He says that if my father came to me and told me to build something, I'm going to build something. So the rabbi says, what are you building? He says, I want to build a shul for 400 people. It was like a guzman because, it was like 20 times more than they needed. He built a Meshuvah project because he had a dream. And the end of the story is that when the Bachrim that were running away from Hitler, as we all know that many Jews went, even though Shanghai is China, not during the war, the little Japan, they were like the Germans, they conquered the whole China. The Germans conquered Hong Kong. My wife and I met a Jew, Mr. Weiss, Olav Shalom, when we were there, Shluchim, in 1992. Mr. Weiss, we made his 90th birthday. He was a Yid that said that from the whole world, he ate the most fish because he only kept kosher. And from a teenager, he was in Hong Kong. So he never got married. There was no one to marry. And he never ate treif. What a tzaddik. From a Yid, a tzaddik. So he says he remembers that when the Japanese came to Hong Kong, he went into the Jewish shul and he took out the Sifrei Torah to his house because no one knew what the Japanese would do. The Japanese were not bad to the Yid. The Japanese allowed Jews to come into Japan and China. And we had hundreds, there were 400 yeshiva bachrim, not Lubavitchers, yeshiva bachrim, that lived for many years in the shul that this guy built. Why did he build a shul? Because he had a dream. Now, how many of us we all have dreams? I'm telling you, if you would just try to remember your dreams, we have amazing dreams. Elama, we learn to ignore it because it's overwhelming, especially as kids. Many dreams are scary, they're overwhelming. So we educate ourselves how to not look towards it, go away from it. So you ignore it. This guy had a dream with his father, and he didn't look away. He looked towards the dream. He says, if my father came to me, I'm going to do something with it. In other words, that that as distant as we are, we can definitely be a lot closer. That every now and then God does certain things for everyone, for everyone. Mamish miracles, a miracle. And when we turn towards it, the month of Tishrei is a miracle. It's a miracle. Everyone has a moment. Maybe people expect too much, so I don't know what the psychology is, but we should understand that it's coming a month that there's going to be a gilui of God to you and to me. I don't know when, I don't know how, it's going to happen. And if we are open towards it, and when it happens, when we celebrate it, when we go towards it, and we say Gavaldik, Ashrenu, then you begin to unpackage it. Then God takes it up another level, like He did with Moshe Rabbeinu. So L'chaim Geber, we're going into the most important month of the year, to a Ruch Nizdike month, a month of miracles. Mamish, a month of miracles is about to happen to all of us. So we should be inspired to look forward to Tishrei, how Gavaldik it is. Even the Gashmias, that in many years it's difficult for Parnasa-wise because it's Yom Tov is the middle of the week. So there's that aspect. You don't even have that this year. This year it's mamish. Even the Gashmias, it's not unique. But again, let's appreciate these things. That it doesn't disturb your Parnasa. You can work from Monday to Friday properly. V'chulei. And then Shabbos and Sunday we can celebrate with Yom Tov, with the Eibishter. Hashem should help us that we should be happy Jews, filled with joy. We should look forward towards our mitzvahs. We should be excited that the month of Tishrei is coming. We should have a greater Avos Yisrael, that we should be nice towards the people that are closest to us. And the V'oit V'hu Ha'ikir is that we have to Chevre, Mashiach has to come. It's a new time is coming. We are in a transition period. Can you imagine? Imagine Rosh Hashanah in the Beis HaMikdash. That's what we have to start picturing. That's going to be Gavaldik. Without a mask, with millions of Jews. It will be comfortable. Don't worry. It's going to be comfortable. I don't know who's going to make the food, but you know what? Who cares? You won't have to make it. Gan Eden. Someone else will. I don't know. The one who has to make it should start schwitzing. Maybe Zelig leader starts sweating. I'm good. It's going to be meals in a box. Who's going to cater the food when Mashiach comes? I'm just being practical. Can you imagine? Who's going to make food for by Aliyah's Haregel is going to be mamish? We're all going to be in Yerushalayim. Can you imagine? How many people were you ever with a group of a few million people? I never was. Who was with a group? Can you imagine being with 20 million people on Korban Pesach? 20 million people are going to be in Yom Kippur, bowing down in the Beis HaMikdash. It's amazing. What about? I'm just thinking about. I'm talking about the watermelon. Let's say Yom Kippur. Like millions of. We're going to be hungry. Like we're going to be angry. Like it's amazing. Someone is going to step up. That will be the beauty. There's going to be a Sayyid that's going to say the watermelon is on me, but he has to order it now. But to Israel, like feeding 20 million Jews.
Elyahu at the Beis HaMikdash is the way we do Elyahu now, or like this?
Completely out. Superman. And there'll be room for everyone.
They know how to do this.
Huh? Someone will take care of the food.
They know how to do things
Big. Huh? No, we don't have flesh. You still have watermelon. but you're not forbidden to have this politics then. It'll be very disappointing. It'll be amazing. You'll be excited. It's happening. It's playing right. It's all practical. It's like you can see it already. Some wealthy Jew here should buy a couple of good apartments over there, guys. We need where to stay. The hotels will be packed. Put it on the credit card. It's going to come Cheshbin. We're going to chapter 11.
It says in
Yeah, that no one said it was difficult. Yeah. All right, let's sing out to that was Megan. Good. Nice story. The Baal Shem Tov had a Talmud called Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Tulna'a. Actually, the first one who recorded the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov was Yaakov Yosef of Tulna'a. The Talmud. He was a Gavaldi Yid before he met the Baal Shem Tov. He had big yichis. He was a big London. He was a big Mekubal. He was a wholesome Yid. And he writes that why did he give himself completely over to the Baal Shem Tov? What did he see in the Baal Shem Tov that completely made him into what was called an Talmud, which we call a Zajac? It's Gavaldi. Now, just to understand that the Baal Shem Tov scholarship was not matched, he says that did not get him. He says the Baal Shem Tov was much greater than him. But you know what got him? He writes like this, that he was going on a trip. They were going for a mitzvah purpose. They were going with the Baal Shem Tov. And they stopped to daven mincha. And they were basically in Ukraine. It's not like here. There was no water. They stopped in a location where there was no water. Before you daven, midrabanan, you have to wash your hands. It's a mitzvah midrabanan. Tells yadayim. Stam yadayim shniyas. He says the Baal Shem Tov cared so much. You have to care. Care is that he lay down on the ground and he was speaking and he told God, he says, God, if you are putting me in a world that I cannot wash my hands before I daven mincha, I don't want to be part of this world. I don't want the whole thing. The Baal Shem Tov said it. He says, when I saw that, he says, I'm this Jew's chassid. Not as davening, not as learning. He says that when he saw that he cared so much that my life is not worth it if I can't do what God wants, he says that's the Jew that I want to be. That's my dad. The warmth, the emes, the kite. It's emes. It's not obligations by rote. Chassidus. We have to care. We care if we feel it. Then we care for it. Yiddishkeit should be an emotional Yiddishkeit. That's the whole Chassidus. Chevra, we are lucky. We have the name Chassidim. It's a joke, but the joke is on us. So God should bless us that we should care more. It should be emes. It should be emes. It is emes. We should feel the emes. We should feel the emes, and we should be freilach. The freilachers. That's what we were called. The happy ones. We should be the happy ones. It's a choice that we have to make. L'chaim. The kids said Thursday night Farbrengen. I hope it stays fresh. Fresh or not, there's boxes of it.
Oh, that?
Not only for this week, for next week also.
Got a donor tonight, Rabbi.
Save that for the next week. Eden l'chaim, Baruch Hashem. Sitting together. Who here was by a Farbrengen, by the Rebbe? Rocky, Rebbe, Mati, you were there? Supposed to be there? Yeah. Chaim, you were there by the Rebbe? Not yet. Soon. By and large. Yeah.
I think in the story there was water came out, right? Water came out.
I never heard that part.
Even that measures for daven or stones on the ground and out water. Today, there's a
Mine of water.
mine, and they built a mikvah. They use this water.
People watching?
Okay, that came out of the continuing.
Never heard that.
No, I see physically there. You can see
Look,
built
it's
a
Taki.
mikvah,
Taki, wake
using
up.
this water.
Wait.
You think the Arizal makes the Arizal make us feel warm.
He's awake.
It's not as cold. It's frozen.
Oh,
You know when I heard the story, Mati? Because we just went to the Gemara that Akiva when I'm a serious nefesh, that's to wash the hands before eating. Mama, she was going to die for that. Like you have to, so like Chabal, I didn't share it because I just saw it later. Like someone sent me on WhatsApp. I never shared this thing, but he said it that it's written in the Talmud. He became his Talmud. He saw Emes. He saw that he cared. He cared with his whole life. In the serious nefesh, right? The Rabbanim. Beautiful. Right, Chevra, whoever wants to Farbrengen gesundheit, whoever is going to leave should make a bracha achreno. Get delicious food, mamish gewaldig, in a box. Bring it with ketchup, with mustard, with all Americano mices.
Rabbi, Haki is here. He wanted to say hi.
Haki, say hi. Hello, Haki, you have to come physically. Yes. Coming on Zoom is only Zoom. Vanish verzoomed. Zoom is Zam. Zam is anger. Zam is it's the anger of God made the Zoom. We want to be together, begashmis. Amen. L'chaim Chaki, a gewaldige end of the year. Warme heit. Und aksivach sinateva and ashonateva mesuka. And big brachas are coming to you and to all of us for the coming year. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam al hamichli al hakolim al tamus hasolim al eretz cham tov v'chava she'tzisa v'chalta v'sein v'chava v'pir v'chein kiva no Adonai Eloheinu al yisrael al yisrael al tziyah mishkan